Tonight, the UN's top court orders Israel to prevent acts of genocide, but stops short of demanding a ceasefire. Also tonight, Donald Trump ordered to pay more than $100 million for defaming author E. Jean Carroll. Convicted murderer Sunil Fraser turns up at a rally protesting her conviction. And one final tune for Tasmania's own piano man. Good evening, Alexandra Alvaro with ABC News. The United Nations top court has stopped short of ordering a ceasefire in Gaza, but called on Israel to prevent genocidal acts. The International Court of Justice agreed to 6 emergency measures in its interim ruling in South Africa's genocide case against Israel. It found they were needed to protect further severe and irreparable harm of Palestinians in Gaza.
Outside The Hague's Peace Palace, a sea of Palestinian flags. Down the road, dozens of Israel supporters, all gathered to watch this highly anticipated ruling.
The court concludes prima facie that South Africa has standing to submit to it the dispute with Israel concerning alleged violations of obligations under the Genocide Convention.
South Africa brought this case to the International Court of Justice, accusing Israel of genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. Israeli lawyers reject this, claiming their military operations comply with international law following Hamas's October 7 attacks.
The court is acutely aware of the extent of the human tragedy that is unfolding in the region.
In their interim ruling, the majority of the 17-judge bench agreed to implement 6 emergency measures. Among them, a call for Israel to prevent any acts or incitement of genocide, a guarantee adequate humanitarian aid is reaching Gaza, and protection of any evidence of alleged crimes. But there was no order for a ceasefire, which South Africa requested.
I believe that in exercising the order, there would have to be a ceasefire. Without it, the order doesn't actually work.
The effect of the order that the ICJ has granted today is that there is a plausible case of genocide. This marks an important first in our quest to secure justice for the people of Gaza.
The World Court is a long way from the conflict in Gaza, but the decisions made here are legally binding for signatory states like Israel. The question now is, will this interim ruling be acted on, enforced, or ignored?
Like every country, Israel has an inherent right to defend itself. The vile attempt to deny Israel this fundamental right is blatant discrimination against the Jewish state.
There's a long road ahead. A final outcome on the genocide claim is expected to take years. Isabella Higgins, ABC News, The Hague.
Palestinian communities around the world had high hopes for the International Court of Justice ruling. Global Affairs editor John Lyons was in Ramallah as the judgment was handed down.
From Yemen to Jordan, solidarity with Palestinians across the Arab world. Earlier, in the occupied West Bank, prayers and hope for a historic decision at the World Court. In Ramallah, the anticipation was palpable as Palestinians gathered to watch the ruling, at public screenings attended by their South African advocates.
It's 15 minutes to go until the ICJ's announcement. As a South African, what are you hoping?
I think in a nutshell that there would be an order that says ceasefire, that would give the people of Gaza and Palestinians generally a reprieve.
The 17 judges of the International Court of Justice have just walked out. Hundreds of people here, including foreign journalists, and the mood here, the anticipation, is extremely high.
In the crowd were many overcome with emotion after months of war. Not all were pleased with the outcome.
The decision of the court wasn't that good. It wasn't for us or against us. Of course, I'm very happy for for people to know about us, about Gaza.
So what were you feeling while you were sitting there watching today?
I was disappointed because what I aspired for and I wanted is an immediate ceasefire and that all the humanitarian aid will go into Gaza. But let's not forget that this is a historic moment and we're very grateful and thankful for South Africa for taking the courage to file this case.
The reality for Palestinians is that whatever the court says, the war isn't going to stop anytime soon. John Lyons, ABC News, Ramallah, in the occupied West Bank.
Donald Trump has been ordered to pay more than $100 million in additional damages to the writer E. Jean Carroll. The columnist sued the former president for defamation after he was found guilty of sexually assaulting her, but then continued to call her a liar.
An extraordinary victory for the woman who twice took on Donald Trump and won.
Carol, how do you feel?
A jury in New York awarded E. Jean Carroll the equivalent of more than 126 million Australian dollars in her second defamation case against the former president.
Does the smile say it all?
A separate civil trial last year had already found Mr. Trump liable for sexually abusing the writer in the 1990s and then defaming her by calling her a liar. This case focused on statements he made while he was president in 2019, which she argued made her the target of online abuse and death threats. Ms. Carroll's lawyers successfully asked for unusually high damages to try to stop Donald Trump's continued public attacks against her. This is a great victory for every woman who stands up when she's been knocked down, she said in a statement, and a huge defeat for every bully who has tried to keep a woman down. The former president described the verdict as absolutely ridiculous, and his legal team vowed to appeal.
Everybody's a right to defend themselves when they are wrongfully accused and to be able to say, I didn't do it.
Donald Trump is still facing another civil case in New York over fraud allegations, as well as 91 criminal charges in 4 prosecutions. But nothing has stopped his march towards again becoming the Republican nominee at this year's presidential election. Overcoming the political costs while the legal bills add up. Jade McMillan, ABC News, Washington.
Convicted murderer Sunil Fraser has attended a rally in Hobart calling for a commission of inquiry into her own case. Neil Fraser hugged and greeted those who attended the event, standing alongside her daughter during speeches. The 69-year-old grandmother was found guilty of murdering her partner of 18 years, Bob Chappell, aboard their yacht on Australia Day in 2009. She was released on parole in 2022 after 13 years behind bars. Dozens of people joined Neil Fraser and her daughter to call for the inquiry into her case, which the Attorney General has already rejected. Under her parole conditions, Neil Fraser was unable to address the crowd.
She is on parole. She lives with the limitations of that parole. She's unable to speak with you. I'm here speaking with you. She's unable to leave the state. She has many, many limitations on her life and quality of life.
The Prime Minister has condemned the actions of a neo-Nazi group who boarded a Sydney train while masked and dressed in black on Australia Day. He's described the scenes as shocking and horrifying, adding they have no place in Australia. Experts warn far-right demonstrations could become more common as extremist groups recruit new followers online.
24 hours after a neo-Nazi group boarded a train in Sydney's north, Premier Chris Minns has flagged tougher laws against racist gestures.
Particularly in relation to white power salutes, or as they're so-called white power salutes.
I don't want to see people in balaclavas, dressed in black from head to toe, who are engaged in neo-Nazi activity in this country.
The group of more than 60 masked men were intercepted by police at North Sydney Station after they boarded the train a few stops earlier before congregating in a nearby park. Police issued 57 infringement notices and arrested 6 men who have since been released without charge.
They were told to stay away from Australia Day events. There is no place for this kind of fascism, neo-Nazism or far-right extremism on this great day, Australia Day.
The Prime Minister described the scenes as shocking.
I was horrified by those images. They have no role in Australia. We have seen a rise in neo-Nazi activity, on extreme right-wing activity. The Director General of ASIO has been warning of this for some time.
Experts say banning symbolic salutes in Victoria last year has been effective in limiting the reach of far-right extremist groups, but won't stop them from recruiting new members online.
Younger men are being drawn into these movements through engagement online. These groups are incredibly active in encrypted messaging applications like Telegram. We can anticipate that there will be more such demonstrations.
Chris Minns has promised a show of force by New South Wales Police if the group stages another demonstration. Leah Harris, ABC News, Sydney.
They've been honoured by the nation, but now the Joint Australians of the Year have issued a warning to the nation. Skin cancer treatment pioneers Georgina Long and Richard Scolyer say Australia's tanning culture is killing us. More than 1,600 Australians are expected to be diagnosed with melanoma this year, but sun safety advocates say education and early intervention will help keep us safe.
Getting a skin cancer check for the first time in his life.
So having a look over the area, this is the only one that does stand out as a little bit different.
Beachgoer Branko Kalina will now need to see a specialist to see if a sunspot could be something more.
You just think, oh, well, it's not going to happen to me, or it's not possible.
It's an attitude many Aussies share, and one which the Joint Australians of the Year say is killing us.
When it comes to tanning, we are swimming outside the flags.
Professors Georgina Long and Richard Scolyer are melanoma treatment pioneers. According to their research, more than 16,000 Australians will be diagnosed with melanoma this year, while 1,300 will die from it. At Warilla on the New South Wales south coast, Jay Allen has pulled up his truck to offer free skin checks.
That's why we got it here, so we can try and bring that rate down, save lives.
It's an issue that's close to his heart after surviving stage 3 melanoma.
I had 44 staples from my stomach to my thigh and I had to go for scans and blood tests every 3 months for 5 years. And, 32, I had the world at my feet, and all of a sudden it changed overnight, and my life was in the hands of my doctors.
The young generation is our future. We really need to start pushing out that awareness, because what we do know is that skin cancer and the damage is done to your skin early on in your years.
What's an Australian summer without a day at the beach? And while the weather's not exactly the best here at South Narrabeen, nothing will stop these kids from the bush getting their first taste of the ocean.
30 Indigenous kids are embracing the surf and learning that even on cloudy days, sun safety is just as important.
My hat, stay in the shade when it's hot and stuff.
Some simple advice we could all follow. Ethan Ricks, ABC News.
2 Malaysian nationals will serve just 5 years in confinement for their role in the 2002 Bali bombings. The men were sentenced by a military court in Guantanamo Bay over the attack, which killed more than 200 people, including 88 Australians. Prosecutors alleged they were key lieutenants to plot ringleader Hambali, who will face trial in March next year. The jury initially handed down a 23-year sentence, but that was overruled by a judge as part of a plea deal. King Charles is said to be doing well after receiving treatment for an enlarged prostate at a clinic in London. Royal aides have declined to say how long the monarch will be in recovery, but his public engagements have been postponed. The 75-year-old is staying at the same hospital where his daughter-in-law Catherine is also recovering from surgery. The King's wife, Queen Camilla, appeared hours after the procedure, looking happy that all had gone well. The popularity of smartwatches is booming, driven by Aussies wanting to be healthier. Almost 4 in 10 Australians own a smartwatch, which collects data from how much we walk or sleep to the patterns of our heartbeats. While they can motivate you to be more active, researchers say it's important to understand the data may not be as accurate as you think.
We're measuring the maximum amount of oxygen Dr. Richard Alcock's body can use.
otherwise known as his VO2 max. It's the gold standard for measuring a person's cardiovascular fitness. But how does an expert physiologist with all these machines compare to this, a smartwatch? Recent studies show a general consensus on their strengths and limitations. The studies found logging how many steps you take is relatively accurate with most wearables. Things start to fall apart though when you try to track metrics like how many calories you're burning. Resting heart rate readings can be quite good, but some watches struggle once you start exercising. They can also find it difficult to track other metrics like blood pressure and the quality of your sleep. This test is grueling.
Brilliant. Go through the results. Your VO2 today was about 62.5 in terms of what your Garmin predicted was, 56. Yeah, so
about 10% off.
So that correlates relatively well at 50.
The difference between these results is due to the watch not measuring Dr. Alcock's oxygen levels. It estimates based on heart rate and speed.
You're almost touching on this sort of Olympic level athlete for your age.
While it's not perfect, the devices are sold as an easy and accessible way of tracking your health and fitness.
Everyday use for the general public, they're great. To motivate fitness, to look at the amount of steps, track what their weight's doing, again, calorie intake versus expenditure. I think it's getting people exercising simply by having the watch.
Market data estimates more than 36% of Australians own a smart wrist wearable, and demand is growing. Every brand uses different technology, which makes things difficult for clinicians and researchers trying to figure out whether smartwatches actually help us live healthier. All the tiny data points from this can be thought of as parts of your digital twin. There's a version of you made entirely of your data.
My principal areas of research is in sports science and strength and conditioning.
Professor Sophia Nymphius is a sports scientist working with elite-level athletes. She makes use of their digital twins, including data from smart wearables to help maximise performance.
Elite athletes have a very specific training environment that is very different to the average consumer.
For most people with a less disciplined lifestyle, the watches tend to provide less accurate data.
I have different settings on my watch, and it shows me how the pace changed throughout the run. For some people, seeing those numbers can be vastly discouraging and may reduce their ability to maintain an exercise routine. We do need to acknowledge the negatives, that there's a psychological component to fully trusting and investing in a number on your watch.
Professor Nymphius suggests looking at trends over longer periods of time instead of obsessing over your daily digits. Kason Ho, ABC News.
Out of all the possible things to spot down at the Hobart waterfront, a turtle isn't usually top of the list. But sisters Eliza and Amy Brown were walking along Elizabeth Street Pier on Thursday evening when they spotted what's believed to be a green turtle, quickly filming their discovery. An official identification of the species may take a few days, but green turtles are usually found in warmer waters. Experts say with climate change, we could start to see more tropical species making their way down to the state.
We've got this nice warm water channel coming down, and that's typically when we start to see, more sightings of these turtle species and other sort of more tropical, associated species sort of coming down and being sighted in our Tasmanian waters.
Russia's Daniil Medvedev says he will have to take his tennis to a new level to beat Italian star Jannik Sinner in tomorrow's men's Australian Open final. Medvedev booked a spot in his third final at Melbourne Park after pulling off an incredible comeback to beat Alexander Zverev in 5 sets.
Daniil Medvedev knows he'll need more than just a slice of good luck to get past Jannik Sinner.
Oh, you're kidding.
He's playing better than before, especially end of the season. He started playing whole different level. So if I want to beat him, I have to raise my level.
Sinner's stunning win over Novak Djokovic prompted this response from the world number one.
This is one of the worst Grand Slam matches I've ever played.
The young Italian has won his past 3 matches against Medvedev, but the Russian will use his experience. Tomorrow will be his 3rd Australian Open final. Sinner is making his Grand Slam debut.
I have no idea how Yannick is going to be, but me, myself, I have this experience. I will try my best. I will fight for my life.
That's out. And Medvedev battles back from the brink.
Medvedev drew on his mental strength to recover from 2 sets to love down against Alexander Zverev, going on to win in 5 epic sets.
I was a little bit lost, but during the 3rd set I started saying myself that if I lose this match, I just want to be proud of myself.
Zverev says the match became harder because of an illness he picked up in the quarterfinals.
I lost it because of a physical state, not because of tennis, and that is for me disappointing.
The physical state of the 2 finalists could be vital tomorrow. Medvedev has twice fought back from 2 sets down, while Sinner has barely raised a sweat, losing just 1 set for the entire tournament. Tom Maddox, ABC News, Melbourne Park.
Russia's Arina Sabalenka is vying for her 2nd straight Australian Open singles title as the women's final gets underway shortly. The world number 2 beat American Coco Gauff to make it her 2nd Grand Slam decider. She'll take on China's 12th seed, Qin Wenjing. She beat Ukraine's Diana Yamstrevska in the semis to earn her 1st Grand Slam final spot. The 2nd test between Australia and the West Indies remains delicately poised, with the tourists building a solid 2nd innings lead in day 3. Nathan Lyon has done damage with the ball, claiming key wickets as the hosts try to restrict the tourist score.
After navigating a difficult 40 minutes under lights with just the loss of Tajnarine Chanderpaul on day 2, the West Indies set their minds to building a big 2nd innings lead. Kirk McKenzie playing beautiful cricket early on day 3.
Oh, divine.
He and captain Craig Braithwaite scored at a healthy rate as their partnership passed 50 and the lead neared 100.
Gets that one and past Nathan Lyon.
But the introduction of Cameron Green brought about a wicket.
In the air and out.
Pat Cummins' bowling changes continued to pay dividends, Nathan Lyon striking in his 1st over. And it should have been an even better session for Australia, but uncharacteristic poor fielding proved costly.
There it is! Don't tell me it went down.
Fielding continued to plague the hosts, a Mitch Marsh effort drawing the ire of both Nathan Lyon and the commentators.
The misfield was bad. The fact that he just loped after it was worse.
Lyon carried on and was rewarded when Alec Athanase fished at one outside off stump, Steve Smith making no mistake in the slips. But there was still a lot of work ahead for the hosts, with Cavum Hodge showing his 1st innings performance was no fluke, as the West Indies steadily built a competitive 2nd innings total. Tom Wildey, ABC News.
An unbeaten knock of 72 from Beth Mooney has carried Australia to an 8-wicket victory over South Africa in their first T20 international in Canberra. In the first game of a 7-match multi-format series, Darcy Brown and Elise Perry both took 2 wickets as the visitors set a target of 148 to win. Australia captain Elisa Healy overcame illness to open the batting, falling just short of a half-century. But it was Mooney who led the charge, hitting 12 boundaries for the home side. The opener hit the winning runs early in the final over, keeping Australia's 100% record against South Africa intact. The 2 sides will face off again tomorrow in the 2nd T20 clash at Manuka Oval.
We always talk about starting well as a team, and I think we set a pretty good tone today. With the ball, we probably gave them a few at the back end there. But, you know, to chase a game 1 down, or 2 down in the end was a pretty good effort.
A close loss for the Jack Jumpers in Auckland last night sees the New Zealand Breakers knocking on the door of the upcoming playoffs. The home team took advantage early, leading 57-39 at half-time. Star player Parker Jackson Cartwright leading the Breakers with 25 points for the game and 4 assists. Free throws proved costly for big man Will Magnay, with only 5 out of 14 making the bucket. A 3-point jump shot from Milton Doyle put the Tasmanians within 4 points of the Breakers with a minute to play, but it wasn't enough as the hosts pulled away courtesy of a series of fouls. And the Jack Jumpers seem to like a close result. While they've had 12 losses this season, they haven't been defeated by more than 8 points.
I love our guys' fight, and again, I thought tonight was a perfect example of a team that could have lost by 25 very, very easily in this building on the road. And they bring it back to 4 with, under a minute, just because of the culture and the belief they have in each other. And those are all really great signs.
After nearly 5 years and countless kilometres, Tasmania's travelling piano has found a permanent home. With a final performance at Tahoon Airwalk, it was a bittersweet farewell for pianist Kelvin Smith.
Setting the stage for one last performance. Since 2019, Kelvin Smith has been keeping a promise: to play piano in beautiful places.
Any of the places that I've been in, there's just been 1 or 2 moments where I'm just totally in tune with the piano, beautiful instrument, in a beautiful environment, and it's just like, this world rocks.
It's an endeavour that's taken him from beaches to sidewalks and all the way to the enormous Gordon River Dam.
Even the simplest of locations, just wheeling it out into the backyard, the local park, the local beach. Having a piano outdoors, there's something beautiful with that.
However spectacular, the travel has left the piano with its fair share of wear and tear. Kelvin now making the call that it's time for the instrument to retire.
Flying through the air under a helicopter is one thing, or hanging from a crane on the wharf in Hobart is another. It's got its own little stories to tell and battle scars to go with it. By anyone's account, it's had a good run.
Having had one last performance, the piano will now stay at Tahoon Adventures in Tasmania's Huon Valley. The scenic location, a fitting home.
He came here the first time and played on the weekend. We opened after the fires. I think Kelvin, from what he says, would like to see people tinkle on it. Obviously, we don't want to get any damage, even though he says it's fairly worn out, but it's a lovely piece of memorabilia.
With this piano now finding its new home, Kelvin says it's time for a break and to focus on other projects. But he's not ruling out a comeback tour somewhere down the line.
Tasmania has so many awesome locations, and they're never going to stop calling me.
Meg Whitfield, ABC News.
To the weather, and Adam Crawford sent in this photo of the vibrant orange rocks at Binalong Bay. It was another windy day across Tasmania. Showers were persistent about the west and far south. The top temperature was 26 degrees over at Freycinet, 23 in Hobart, 22 in Launceston. Quite a bit of rain fell about parts of the west and southwest, but it remained dry elsewhere. The highest rainfall was 41 millimetres at Mount Bob's, 12 fell in Strawn. The national satellite sequence shows large areas of cloud over Queensland, New South Wales and the tropical north, and an onshore flow is pushing low cloud over Tasmania. West to southwesterly airstream over Tasmania will tend northwesterly on Sunday as a high passes just to the north of the state. And across the country tomorrow, possible storms in Darwin and Brisbane, Melbourne fine and 24, 28 in Adelaide, 38 in Alice. Back home, fine apart from showers about the west, mostly light, west to northwesterly winds with afternoon sea breezes in the east. 22 in Burnie, 24 and partly cloudy in Devonport, Launceston 27 degrees. 25 and sunny in St Helens, Orford and Swansea, fine 25 too, and 27 in Campbelltown. And in Hobart, 24 and partly cloudy. Sunrise will be at 6:05. On coastal waters, west to northwesterly winds of 15 to 25 knots, reaching up to 30 knots about the south and about the northeast during the early morning. There's a strong wind warning from Low Rocky Point to Wineglass Bay and from Stanley to east of Flinders Island. On Monday, fine apart from light showers about the west and possible showers about the central east. On Tuesday, possible light showers about the east and then showers developing about the west late. And for the rest of the week, looking fine, warm weather continuing in the north. And that's the news for now. If you happen to miss any of tonight's stories, you'll soon be able to catch up on iView. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.